Well, good evening and welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ+ daily evening television news, broadcasting live and then available on demand. And we're available on all smart televisions, including Roku, Apple Television, Android TV, Amazon Fire TV, and of course, YouTube and Facebook. It's time to queer up the news. It's Tuesday, December 6, 2022, and we are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson, and this evening we bring you the news of and a perspective representing the LGBTQ+ community from South Florida, America, and across our planet.
This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ+ evening news show. Whatever happens unique in LGBTQ+ news, you will see it and hear it.
Happening Out Television Network is a 501c3 nonprofit media platform in the television and radio model of PBS and NPR, but designed for our LGBTQ+ community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ+ media companies in America. Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network.
Our magazine is celebrating 37 years of the LGBTQ+ experience, and our television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ+ and broader community.
Well, let's begin by welcoming Dr. Danielle Weitzer, also known as Dee. Dee is an attending psychiatrist who has spoken at national conferences, appeared on ABC News, and has over 25 publications focusing on gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and queer mental health. Welcome, Dee.
Thank you so much for having me. I am super excited. Well, now let's welcome anchor TriniDaddy. TriniDaddy is a concert musician, director, and artist in the South Florida area. He is currently a violinist and pianist with the Miami City Ballet and is the program director for the Seminole Theater Players at the historic Seminole Theater in Homestead, Florida. He is also one of the permanent hosts of It's Happening Out. Welcome, TriniDaddy.
Hello, everybody. It's wonderful to be here. I'm going to put in a little plug. If you need a little Christmas or you love the arts, come support the Miami City Ballet and see the Nutcracker 2.0, which is a little bit of a Miami take on the Nutcracker. It's got a few differences, but it does stay with the traditional music, and I am the guy who plays the Sugar Plum Fairy and the Celesta, and I also fiddle around on the violin when I'm not doing that. And one other little plug to the Seminole Theater Players, which was just nominated for 15 Broadway World Awards. So go awesome. Seminole Theater.
That is big news.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that. The Nutcracker for Miami City Ballet. When and where?
It starts not this weekend, but next weekend, and it runs through Christmas Eve in Miami at the Arts Center. And then from the 28th to the 30th at the Kravis Center in West Palm Beach.
Oh, excellent. Very good. Sounds fun. All right, and TriniDaddy, we're going to continue with you.
Let's welcome anchor Brayland Brown. Brayland is an unapologetically Black man of trans experience. He is the board president of Trans Inclusive Group, which advocates to protect and defend equality for transgender and LGBTQ in South Florida. Brayland is also the co-founder and co-director of the Smile Trust, which is an international nonprofit that works towards community resilience, housing and food security for all. Welcome, Brayland.
It's a pleasure to be here, and I have a plug of my own. We actually are starting our first annual fundraiser with the Smile Trust called Give Us a Buck for a Smile. And of course, that's just asking for $1, and that gives us the opportunity to give a person who's unsheltered or who is experiencing food insecurities the resources they need in order to move forward.
Excellent.
Let's welcome our anchor Gregg Shapiro, an inductee into the Chicago LGBTQ Hall of Fame. Gregg is the author of 8 books, including his latest, Fear of Muses, an entertainment journalist whose celebrity interviews and music reviews run in a variety of regional LGBTQ+ and mainstream publications and websites. His movie review column called Screensaver can be found in South Florida Gay News, San Francisco Bay Area Reporter, RottenTomatoes.com, and more. Good evening, Gregg.
Well, good evening. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with queer headlines. The LGBTQ+ community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast. And here are the bullet points of the Queer News for today, Tuesday, December 6th, 2022, National Gazpacho Day. Zesty.
You can always count on Gregg. All right, let's begin by queering up courts. The Supreme Court hears the latest clash on religion and gay rights. The Supreme Court's conservative majority sounded sympathetic to a Christian graphic artist named Lori Smith from Colorado, who objects to designing wedding websites for gay couples, a dispute that's the latest clash of religious rights versus gay rights, and to the land of the highest court it goes. The designer and her supporters say that ruling against her would force artists, from painters and photographers to writers and musicians, to do work that is against their beliefs. Her opponents, meanwhile, say that if she wins, a range of businesses will be able to discriminate, refusing to serve black customers, Jewish or Muslim people, interracial or interfaith couples, or immigrants, among others. Over more than 2 hours of spirited arguments, the justices repeatedly tested out what ruling for the designer could mean, using detailed and sometimes colorful hypothetical scenarios. Those scenarios included a black Santa asked to take a picture with a child dressed in a KKK outfit, a photographer asked to take pictures for the Jewish dating website JDate, and also the marital infidelity website Ashley Madison, and a food business called Grandma Helen's Protestant Provisions. Where to draw the line for what a business might do without violating state anti-discrimination laws was a big question in Monday's arguments at the High Court. 20 mostly liberal states, including California and New York, are supporting Colorado, while 20 other mostly Republican states, including Arizona, Indiana, Ohio, and Tennessee, are supporting Smith. And it's an interesting standard of what the court heard. If I was going to bet $20, we're going to hear probably a 6-3 decision for the graphic designer, the website designer in Colorado. But that's interesting because no time in modern history in the last 50 years would you come to this conclusion in the Supreme Court. It is only because of what happened with Donald Trump as president from 2016 to 2020 that this moment could happen. That's the only reason, in my opinion. The other interesting but it is what it is. Elections matter, and they got what they wanted. The other thing that is interesting is when it comes to the court applying equal protection under the law kinds of standards like this case does, I go back to 1958 and apply the exact same standard. If there was website designers in 1958 or cake bakers in 1958, I am not going to design a website or bake a cake in 1958 for a black person. And I wonder what the Supreme Court would say. In 1958, they might have upheld that. By 1964, they wouldn't. And for the next 50 years, they wouldn't if that was continually challenged. I see absolutely no difference here. And the hypotheticals that they gave were exactly in these scenarios. They're trying to carve out exceptions to be able to discriminate. And that is clearly what is going on here, and we should prepare. That is clearly probably what we're getting ready to accept.
Well, one of the reasons that the hypotheticals are happening is because there really is no defendant in the case. So was news to me. I didn't know that the Supreme Court would actually hear a case where it's just a hypothetical. So that begs the question, are they choosing this case because they don't choose most of the cases that are brought before them.
What do you think?
I think it's that they're trying to set a precedent in case law so that they don't have to rule on any other LGBT case that comes before them that has to do with this, that they can say, well, you know what, it's going to take the heat off of us. The lower courts are going to decide with whatever it is that we set as precedent right now.
It would have been an interesting escape clause in 1958 to 1964 if the courts would have done the exact same thing. That's a super interesting point.
But also, you know, I may be a little different in that as an artist, I really don't want to be compelled to support something or to perform or to create for something that I don't agree with. So if the KKK wants to hire me for I don't know, one of their recruitment events, of course I'm going to say no to that. And because I'm in a service art-based industry, I can do that. And that's also what the Colorado law says, as for what I understand, is that it does not compel artists to have to perform for causes that they don't support. However, it's, you know, they never ruled on it with the cake baker, is what is the difference between selling a product in your store that you can just turn somebody away versus whether you have to create some kind of artistic expression. And because that case was not decided, it was decided on a technicality, it didn't address the question. So now we're here and the courts are going to address that, and we'll see what they say.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the horror is that once again, Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, and of course, the Trump picks Gorsuch, bedwetter Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett, they're going to be making decisions that are going to have lasting impacts
for decades
on us, our community, forever.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, it's horrifying, really.
Yeah. Elections matter.
Yeah. Yes, we say it a lot.
All right, well, let's move on to some education.
Well, let's queer up education. High school principals report bullying of LGBTQ plus students on the rise. Nearly half of the public high school principals who participated in a new nationally representative survey say they faced efforts from parents or the broader community to challenge or limit LGBTQ plus students' rights. During the 2021-2022 school year, the new study's results suggest that adult efforts to limit LGBTQ plus students' rights have led to increased bullying of LGBTQ plus students in schools. During the summer of 2022, the Institute of Democracy, Education, and Access at UCLA and the Civic Engagement Research Group at UC Riverside surveyed 682 public high school principals and found that culture war issues have their jobs increasingly difficult. As NPR reports, policies related to LGBTQ plus students' rights were among the topics that 69% of those surveyed said led to substantial political conflict with parents or members of their communities. Researchers found that principals in narrowly divided purple districts were almost twice as likely as those in more conservative or liberal areas to say that they faced multiple efforts to limit LGBTQ plus students' rights. A similar 2018 survey found that 15% of principals indicated multiple attacks on LGBTQ plus students. That percentage rose to 24% across all schools in the 2022 survey, with the number more than tripling in purple districts. So I myself have been a teacher for 20 plus years, and I teach small children. And I came to the conclusion last summer when I was in a group of kids, when one of them, as they do every year, asked me, are you married? And to which I said I was not. And another kid chimed in and said, I bet he has a partner, or she said, I bet he has a lover. Fifth grader.
Oh, fifth grader. Wow.
And they were assuming that it was a female, but then another child said, I'm really uncomfortable. The same child that had asked if I was married said, I'm very uncomfortable by that. And then I realized that I am in a new day and age in which I may lose my job, because many teachers, and a lot of people don't know this because they've talked about the teachers' unions, but in many schools, teachers are on year-to-year contracts. And so for any reason, they can not renew the contract, which is different from firing or discrimination. But they'll come up with anything that they want to say about that, you know, to get them out of their hair. So I have taken the stance for myself in my personal life that I am willing to die on that hill, and that if I say something to what somebody doesn't like, or one of the parents or religious parents or teachers tells me that I can't put up a picture, which I don't have because I'm eternally single. But if I did, I want that option to be able to put it up there, and if a child questions that I should be able to say that's my partner, or that's my husband, or whoever, however they are in my life.
Trini, that's the bravery that we need in the LGBTQ community, because we can't win this fight right now. In Florida, we can't win this fight. There's supermajority in Tallahassee. We have Ron DeSantis, and we know what Ron DeSantis is. We can't win this fight. That's what's going on in our school boards in Miami-Dade County, where you're at. But our next steps in planning our response and what's going to happen in 23 and 24 absolutely flows out of that attitude. I congratulate you for it, because the bravery of that is how we are going to win. And somebody like you telling your story of how reasonable my story is going to change hearts and minds when they hear it. So that's the way we're going to move.
Are there other teachers that you know of that are willing to do the same, or do you feel like you're alone?
I feel like there are more teachers that if they had to, they would, but they're not willing to talk about anything or even mention anything just because they don't want to deal with the hassle of it.
But what I want you to know is I want you to know that community organizations like Trans Inclusive Group and the Smile Trust and the McKinsey Project, we're here to support you and those students as well, and those parents, by creating safe spaces where we can strategize, where we can talk about educating the community and ensuring that the parents of LGBTQ students don't have to stay silent, because that's part of the problem. If you have a ruckus of a small group of people and there's no one else to step up and take up for the kids themselves, then who can be their voice, right? So I'm letting you know that you have the support of community organizations to push this forward, so you don't have to stand in that gap alone.
I'm curious to that point, beyond identifying gay man, at the top of the list, not only in Florida, but all over the country, is the trans community and trans kids. Healthcare, of course, but entire existence issues. What do y'all feel? What do y'all think about? We have two advocates here at the table. One, a doctor, is a psychiatrist. One, in leading as president of an advocacy group. What do y'all think about these principles coming together, going, wait, we're seeing unprecedented response in our schools in terms of bullying, and we know from the Trevor Project, they've educated us that means that people are going to be injured and die.
And suicide rates are going to go up, of course.
I think that part of this really highlights the importance of overall education. So I think, like, a lot of times in schools, teachers have a hard time, here we're talking about kids as well. I think that it really highlights the lack of parental and community education. Kind of from when people are attacking the schools, I think that people are really trying to limit the rights because they're afraid that, like, for example, children are going to be influenced and maybe become part of the community. But if you provide education, what we know in medicine is actually, like, gender expression. It really starts at a much earlier age. So even when parents are trying to fight this, I don't think it's even going to accomplish their goal, because likely kids already know things, they just have trouble expressing it. So that's one of the things, that's why doing these shows I think is important overall, not just educating our communities, but people indirectly in the community, such as parents.
But making it clear that it's not influence, that it's not grooming, that
Correct.
it's just biological, that it's eventually,
Correct. It's known that even before school age, that there already is gender concepts and things like that. So limiting rights is not going to do anything except make people miserable. I don't think.
I'm also curious, Brayland, from your seat, Trans Inclusive does such an amazing job in our community, in Wilton Manors, just an amazing job. When you hear about bullying, your reaction of hearing these statistics of dramatic rise, how does it wash over you in terms of what you think about it?
Well, I can tell you that I was, as a youth, the statistics say 82% of trans youth will think about committing suicide. 40% will actually think about actually attempt to commit suicide. As a youth, I was in that statistic. So I understand, with not having a person to talk to and tell them how I feel, how those kids will feel. And I know that it will lead to just distress. There's no other word to say but distress. But what I can say is, when we stand together as LGBTQ leaders and in the community, and we say enough's enough, and we start to actually educate people, like you say, and actually show the stories, the positive stories, where we're thriving, where we're doctors, where we're teachers, where we're lawyers, where we can be judges, where we can be politicians, then people will stop being afraid, right? Because it's like right now we're just trying to say, I'm human and I just want to live.
Exist.
Right?
And a very interesting point. One last thing I want to say before we move on is, in my opinion, the most significant issue in this report, in this survey of these principles, is the reference of not red states or blue states, but the purple states. That's where the real critical issue is going on. And where is that? That is Florida. Now, some argue that this midterm pushes us to red. Probably not true. We're probably still a purple state. But in the states that are purple, that's where the real danger is for our children in schools. And the obvious reason is because in the purple states, you have the greatest likelihood of clash in the schools. Purple is a reflection that everybody doesn't think red, and everybody doesn't think blue is progressive. There is both in the same place, and when both are in the same place, they clash with each other. And who is the cannon fodder? Our children in schools. So that's where we should be worrying about and concentrating on. And for all of us, where is that? That's Florida. We should be very, very concerned about our students in Florida, because it's ground zero of somebody who has created an idea of don't say gay, of attacking our trans community, of attacking our drag queens, of attacking the LGBTQ community in a purple state where you have very blue Broward County, and then you have a more reddish trending Miami-Dade County, which creates clash. And that is dangerous for our students. We should pay very close attention to this survey.
I think, just one last thing, that this is why addressing in the schools is really important, because I've said this before, from a mental health standpoint, one of the highest periods of risk of suicide or suicidal thoughts is during the coming out period, because of the risk of rejection is the highest. And that happens a lot of time in the school age. And so that's why we need to work together to really help support the schools. All right, next up, queer up trans rights. Study reports state legislators proposed record 306 bills targeting trans people. An analysis released Monday by NPR details which a rights advocacy group called Republican Party's obsession with curtailing the rights of transgender people, with U.S. state legislators proposing more than 300 pieces of legislation targeting the community over the past 2 years. Lawmakers in every region of the United States have put forward a total of 306 anti-trans bills since 2020, with 86% of the bills focusing on transgender use. 15% of the bills have become law, including total bans on gender-affirming health care for transgender youth in Alabama and Arkansas, bans on students using bathrooms and locker rooms that correspond to their gender rather than sex assigned at birth in Tennessee, Alabama, and Oklahoma, and similar restrictions for school sports teams in at least 19 states. Some of the proposals are based on and threaten to perpetuate misinformation about transgender people, including a Tennessee law that bars medical professionals from providing hormone treatments to prepubescent children. NPR's reports reveals that trans people, youth especially, continue to be under attack. Representative Pramila Jayapal noted that the Equality Act, which would prohibit discrimination based on sex, sexual orientation, and gender identity, has passed in the U.S. House, but has yet to pass in the Senate due to the legislative filibuster, which effectively requires 60 votes for bills to pass instead of a simple majority. So, you know, when talking about this, first of all, I think it's horrible. But I think the main thing for me, especially as a mental health physician, I'm here to advocate on mental health. I think the mental health consequences of this could cause a complete uproar. So I ask myself, like, what is the end goal with this? And to me, it seems like the end goal is to ban transgender healthcare affirming care. And one thing I want to bring up, I think that these people should read about mental health. It's very real. A study that I wrote about for ABC News about a year or two ago had a large pool of transgender people, and they followed them for a long period of time of different levels of access to care. One group had 0, one group had hormones, and one group had access to surgery and hormones. And what they found was there was a significant correlation. The people who had no healthcare access, significantly higher hospital stays, mental health visits, medications, and suicidal thoughts, and were much more likely to go down that road. And it was correspondent. The second group, hormones, they did better, but the best group by far were the people that had access to care. And this was a large representative study. So I think that when I see something like this, unfortunately, I think that if trans people don't have access to care, I can say myself included, the mental health consequences are going to be astronomical.
And just the numbers, what was it, 300 and something bills? I mean, it's just
crazy.
I mean, just focus on something useful, right? Just leave us alone and just focus on something.
Brayland, from the standpoint of your representation of trans inclusive, why do you think we're seeing this trend? The number of laws that are being introduced here in Florida and all over the country. Why do you think it is happening?
Simply ignorance, fear of the unknown, not really understanding, and really this depiction by a small group of people that we aren't human, right? That's why visibility matters, right? Because I'm a Black trans man. So when I was a youth and I was feeling having these feelings, I didn't know who to talk to. I could talk to my parents, right? But then I was told that doesn't make sense, right? So you have to find some outlet. And if you can't find an outlet, then you resort to thinking about killing yourself, thinking that you don't need to be here, questioning your existence. But when I was able to find a group like Trans Inclusive Group as an adult, I was able to see other people that looked like me, right? Because that's why representation and visibility matters. And I'm going to continue saying visibility, 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 and actually telling our stories to everyone, so they know that we're here and we're not going anywhere. And that's why it's important for lesbians, for gays, and this is even non-binary community, right? Everybody has to stand behind us as we support our youth as well, because guess what? They're coming after them, and then they're coming after us. And it's not going to stop. So we have to stand together, united with the same strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I just make the observation that all of us at Hotspots and Happening Out Television Network would say we are definitely trying to make a commitment to increased visibility of the diversity in our community. Well, we're all creatures. I'm a creature of Wilton Drive, which can be a very white, privileged gay man location. And we've got to get beyond that. Yesterday, I made note that we did a story about DeSantis contributing to 24 campaigns in Florida for school boards, personally financing donations for school boards. And they're Moms of Liberty. All 24 of them are Moms of Liberty. And the person telling the story was a 16-year-old Broward County trans student telling the story beautifully. And the representation of that trans student, high school student, who was a sophomore in high school, is a beautiful representation. I just point out what washes over me as we do this story. We have a psychiatrist sitting at the table who is a trans woman. And we have a Black man that is leading a 501 service organization that is helping in the community. These kind of representations are what helps get over the ignorance, and we must dedicate ourselves and dedicate ourselves and dedicate. The problem that we have coming, the other note that I want to make, is what's going on in Oklahoma. There is a process moving on in the very radical ends of the Republican Party in Oklahoma to move beyond youth denial of trans health care. There are a growing voice that want to ban health care and recognition support in any way for all trans, including adults. Now, this is a natural inclination of the crazy getting even crazier. And we should be aware of this because we are all in this together. If in Oklahoma they're willing to go after eliminating health care, you just mentioned it, for adults in their choice in trans, they're going to go after lesbians and they're going to go after gay men.
It's a matter of time.
It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
This is an issue that we have to watch and pay close attention to, because we're either all in it together or we're all defeated together, one way or the other.
If I may add one thing to that, I spent a lot of time in conservative circles. I have a lot of Trump friends. I don't understand why. I mean, I understand, but they have their reasons. But what I want to say is that the government officials that are making these decisions are not representative of the people, because even these people who are Trump supporters that I know, they don't care about trans people having rights. They don't care about any of this stuff, really, as long as their taxes are a certain way, and they don't care about it. It's the people that are in government that are ruling in ways that are not representative of us. So
this is why I think what you said was really important about increased visibility. And I completely agree that people don't know what they understand, and then they're going to shy away from it. But again, talking from a healthcare perspective, especially for, our gay, lesbian sisters, what people don't understand is that if you ban the healthcare for them, some of the healthcare procedures, particularly for the different groups in the community, is different, particularly as it pertains to sexual health. So it's even going above and beyond the mental health realm. They can actually have real medical problems because the sexual health is different. One good thing I will say, this is a good thing, is that there is increased visibility on medical education and medical schools for the differences in the LGBTQ plus community, but it's not going to be able to be applied if this happens.
Right. Well, Dee, let's go into Russia.
Sounds good.
Next up.
Oh, Brayland, sorry.
Clear up the worldview. Putin signs one of the world's most extreme bans on LGBTQ plus. Russian President Vladimir Putin on Monday signed into law a bill that expands a ban on so-called LGBTQ propaganda in Russia, making it illegal for anyone to promote same-sex relationships or suggest that non-heterosexual orientations are normal. The ban was rubber-stamped by Putin just days after a harsh new foreign agents law came into effect. As the Kremlin cracks down on free speech and human rights as its military operation in Ukraine falters. According to the Russia state news agency TASS, the new law will prohibit the dissemination of such propaganda or promoting information about LGBTQ people across social networks, in the mass media, films, and advertisements. As per AP, the law expands upon an old law that has prohibited the dissemination of propaganda of non-traditional sexual relations to children and bans the spread of such information to adults, too. The legislation broadly defines propaganda to encompass any positive or neutral depiction or discussion of non-heterosexual relations and does not contain exceptions for purpose of art, scientific studies, or education, according to the Human Rights Watch. Under the new law, individuals can be fined up to $6,370 for LGBTQ propaganda and up to $3,185 for demonstrations of LGBTQ plus and information that encourages a change of gender among teenagers. When I think about this story, I think about the battle that we have stateside, right? And what I can say to our siblings across the water is that we can provide the support and dollars if needed to assist them as they begin to advocate for themselves and they keep fighting for the rights. And I just encourage them to be encouraged and to keep fighting.
And let me just say, don't worry, Vlad. No dudes want to have sex with you. I'm pretty sure nobody wants to see you. And then this idea of propagandists, Russia, the USSR, same thing. Propagandists talking about propaganda, it's the ultimate in hypocrisy.
And doublespeak.
Yeah,
1984.
Right.
And
is this any different than the laws that were already on the books? Because I remember hearing about this from 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, no, they have steadily worsened. What Putin has signed now is basically an acknowledgement that gay people LGBTQ people do not exist in Russia. They do not exist. And that if anyone suggests otherwise, they're committing propaganda against the state and the people of Russia. And that is a significant enhancement where you're fined for it. When Pussy Riot was arrested, it was a situation where that was a protest against a group and the group was punished. Today, that's not even possible. They don't exist. The women of Pussy Riot do not exist in Russia. So as a result, Putin and his cronies are saying no one exists, and it's propaganda to say otherwise. The one thing that I think is really important in this story is exactly to your question, what changed? And I've given you a couple of quick examples. Over the last 10 years, this has worsened in Russia and worsened in Russia and worsened in Russia. And quite frankly, you can draw similarities to the beginnings of the Ron DeSantis motivations in Florida and what we saw from DeSantis 10 years ago. And Putin has moved and moved and moved from the standpoint of the Pussy Riot days to preventing Moscow Pride, and you can't gather, and they would do impromptu, immediate Pride celebrations for 15 minutes before the police arrived, until the declaration that there's no LGBT people in Russia, to its propaganda if you say LGBT people exist. That is an evolution. The scary thing about that is this started in Russia with trans people. It started with trans people. And then he moved to Pussy Riot, which was lesbians. Then he moved to Gay Pride in Moscow, which encompassed everyone in representation of LGBT, to saying there are no LGBT in Russia, to saying now it's propaganda if you contradict the state and the people in trying to say that there's anything in our country except heterosexual relationship. Okay, those are all terrible things. But if there is a living reason, I think, why we should all unite in the United States, it's looking at Russia. Because they started with trans and moved next, and moved next, and moved next.
It's a playbook that can be copied.
It's a playbook that we do not exist.
Right.
We should pay attention to what's going on in Russia and say, we're watching a playbook that is being created that very radical religious and radical political in the United States are going to learn from.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I'm afraid that people who go to Russia, I mean, my sister-in-law is Russian, that they're going to pick up on certain things and then bring it to the United States, and then they're going to bias and indirectly bias a whole, and then we're taking steps backward. Yeah. One of the things I think is crazy when I heard about this is like, are you going to get fined for like holding your boyfriend's hand in public?
Yes.
And it's like
propaganda.
We're crazy.
Absolutely. You are going to be fined. There's no question about it.
All right, now we're going to clear up trans rights. Representation matters, as first ever group of trans attorneys admitted to practice before the Supreme Court. The first ever group of trans attorneys has been admitted to practice before the Supreme Court. On November 30th, 10 members of the National Trans Bar Association from across the country stood before the court as part of the organization's efforts to increase visibility for trans attorneys. In a press release, NTBA co-chair Lucas Cameron Vaughn said, quote, "We put together this group wanting to showcase to the court the spectrum of legal talent that happens to be transgender. The message this will deliver is that attorneys who are transgender are just like every other group of attorneys, talented, dedicated, and working for clients across the nation," end quote. The press release explained that the idea behind asking for admission of this group to the Supreme Court came about after oral arguments during an anti-trans workplace discrimination case, R.G. Harris Funeral Homes versus EEOC, that led to the Supreme Court's landmark decision that anti-LGBTQ+ workplace discrimination is illegal under Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. NTBA co-chair Kristen Broad was present during these oral arguments, amidst which Justice Neil Gorsuch said that banning anti-trans discrimination in the workplace would lead to massive social upheaval. The court had no idea that there were at least 6 trans attorneys in the courtroom on that very day. And by the way, do you know what leads to massive social upheaval? Having Trump appoint ultra-conservative justices such as Gorsuch, Barrett, and Bedwetter Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, that's exactly right. What do y'all think about having representation, trans community, arguing cases at the Supreme Court?
I didn't know that they were not able to begin with. So maybe somebody who's a little bit more knowledgeable in that area. With the trans group of lawyers, what Is it because they're the group as opposed to individuals?
It wasn't a prohibition. Right. It was the group increasing the visibility that they represent a group of trans attorneys that are able to argue in certification. You have to be certified to be able to argue in front of the Supreme Court. So it's a visibility issue, not a prohibition issue. It wasn't that
they weren't there.
They weren't there. It's just they're not recognized for what it is, and this increases the visibility of the representation.
I think, just a comment as a trans woman, I mean, at least for me, I was so worried about workplace discrimination, which it's getting better, but is still present. So I think that this really, with this increased visibility, shows that transgender people in the workplace are just like everybody else. Like, they have a goal they want to accomplish, they want to be educated, and they're there to do what they're there to do. And so I think my hope is that through this increased visibility, people will just give us a chance and understand that your work life and your personal life have boundaries, and we're there to work just like everybody else.
And that's why I think, and we keep saying it, everyone has said it, visibility. And I will keep saying that visibility, it matters. It also, like I said, it shows stories of success. It shows us outside of what they think trans people should be or what they think that they are. You can be a lawyer, you can be a doctor, you can be an activist, you can be a teacher, you can be whatever you want to be. Because guess what? My transness does not dictate who I am as a person. It just doesn't. My success is not dependent on my transness. My success is dependent on the efforts that I put forth in life.
I think that is a bullseye. One of the things I really love about this story is it says loud and clear, we're not better at the Supreme Court. We are just the same at the Supreme Court. That's all we're asking. And I think broadly the trans community and the LGBTQ community, we must continue to say loudly over and over again that we deserve the same respect that everyone else gets. And we're not asking for special rights. We're asking for the same rights. And if we have to say that 1,000 times, it's worth saying 1,000 times, because you do not need to fear, because we're not asking for anything more or to take something away from you. And somehow we've allowed the radical religious evangelicals and the radical political, which Trini makes the point that this is a minority voice in America, but they roar louder than everyone else. We've allowed them to take control of the narrative that they want more. They're taking something away from you. You're going to lose your whiteness in our communities in Ohio. We have to take that narrative back, which I think is very important. And one of the other things that I think is really super interesting in this story is the reference of the Supreme Court decision out of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. It's a reminder to us that I think we should embrace the civil rights movement again. Yeah. LGBT has made gigantic progress, but we're under a new and different kind of attack. And we haven't responded to it very well yet. They knocked us and we wobbled, and we need to steady ourselves a bit. And one of the things that I think is a great place to start is civil rights in the 1960s.
Sure. A march on Washington?
And that,
Let's do it.
and the representation of, wait, this minority voice has taken control of the narrative, and we need to first pat it out, and then second, start to, in a reasonable way, start to raise our voices to say, we're just like you. And the vast majority of Americans will respond to that. The vast majority will. So let's queer up entertainment. We need a little Chrstmas with these 14 LGBTQ movies to lift your spirits. A good holiday movie can warm your heart and put you in a festive mood. Dozens of holiday films have been released in more recent years catering to the LGBTQ+ community. Some films can be streamed right now, including Happiest Season and Single All the Way, which I saw over the weekend. In case your list of movies is over, or you want to make sure you watch no dull movies this season, here's the list of LGBTQ+ Christmas movies that will warm and tickle your heart. First up, The Bitch Who Stole Christmas. The movie follows Olivia, Krista Rodriguez, and an ambitious journalist assigned to her boss, RuPaul, to write an expose about a winter ball competition in the small town of Tuckahoe. Get it? Well, the Chrstmas house, a married couple, invites their adult children, including gay son Brandon and his partner, to stay with them to revisit an old family tradition of transforming their childhood home into the Chrstmas house. The next movie to consider is Chrstmas at the Ranch. It is a story of Haley, played by Laura Allen, and Kate, Amanda Rigatti, and how Haley finds love where she least expects it. Apart from the above movies, you also would probably love to watch The Chrstmas Setup, Dashing in December, Falling for Christmas, Happiest Season, I've seen that one, A Jenkins Family Christmas, Let It Snow, I've seen that one, Season of Love, Some Kind of Christmas, I've seen that one. Oh my goodness, I'm gay, aren't I? Twinkle All the Way, Under the Christmas Tree, and as we mentioned, Single All the Way. I am having this weird thing. I'm going on to Netflix. I even did a post about it. I said to friends, are y'all aware that there is a Christmas movie thread line at Netflix that has like hundreds of Christmas movies? And I seem to be going through them, and I don't know what it is. I feel like, I've got the EBGBs, but I'm really loving the Netflix Christmas line this year of movies.
Well, and Single All the Way is so worth watching,
So
just
fun.
for Miss Jennifer Coolidge.
Yes, that's right.
Who steals every scene that she appears in. But also there's an older one from 2009. It's Rob Williams' Make the Yuletide Gay,
yeah.
is also another one of my favorites. I strongly recommend that
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
I didn't know there were gay Christmas movies.
Yeah.
Single All the Way?
Yeah.
That sounds like the title of my next biopic.
We,
Do you find them on Netflix?
Yes, you can find
Hulu.
or Hulu.
Yeah, sure.
HBO has a line.
Yeah.
Do you type in like gay Christmas?
Yeah.
And then they all
and
come
it'll
up?
come right up.
Yes.
Exactly.
Ho, ho,
You know, this is 2022.
Yeah.
And you know what else happens when you put in those movies, and if you're watching the trailer, underneath will be other titles that, trust me, it leads you down a rabbit hole.
Okay.
So you can add it to your list.
I totally didn't know about any of these movies. I'm excited to see them all. So someone watch with me.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, next, we are proud of our special partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. Supporting that partnership, we are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine Cathedral at the Happening Out television studios. We broadcast Sunshine Cathedral's Sunday International Service at 10:30 a.m. with more than 30,000 watching every week.
Hi, I'm Evan Almanzar, and I'm with Sunsurf Youth Leadership Council, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
That is today's news for the LGBTQ+ community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ+ evening news show.
If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Are you, like most of America, part of our very large television audience watching this live LGBTQ+ news broadcast right now on Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, and Amazon Fire TV?
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ+ digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support. If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world.
This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ+ stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
Well, I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson. And on behalf of these LGBTQ+ reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Dr. Dee Weitzer, TriniDaddy, Brayland Brown, and Gregg Shapiro, we will see you daily at 8 p.m. But before we end our show for this evening, we have one final story.
Next up, Queer Up the Big Interview. GMCSF Tropical Wave Christmas Rehearsal as they sing We Need a Little Christmas. During the interview, Queer News Tonight host Al Ferguson performed a special interview with a renowned gay men's chorus of South Florida. This big interview is with Anthony Cabrera, assistant conductor of the chorus, and Gabe Salazar, who takes care of the chorus as artistic director. The duo had great fun during the interview. We also got to witness GMCSF's Tropical Wave Christmas rehearsal as they sang We Need a Little Christmas during the interview. Gay Men's Chorus of South Florida will be celebrating its 6th annual holiday performance at Hard Rock Live at Seminole Hard Rock Cafe, Hotel, and Casino Hollywood on Sunday, December 18th at 7 p.m. This charming performance will be led by artistic director Gabe Salazar. The chorus has grown to over 170 members in its short history and has become the largest gay men's chorus in the southeastern United States.
Well, we have a very interesting interview tonight with the Gay Men's Chorus of South Florida and Tropical Wave as they rehearse for the big Christmas concert coming to the Hard Rock Live. And what do we need? We need a little Christmas. It's Al Ferguson with Queer News Tonight, and we're at this rehearsal for the Christmas concert for the Gay Men's Chorus of South Florida, December 16th at Sunshine Cathedral and December 18th at the Hard Rock Live. And I want to bring Gabe Salazar in with us, who is the conductor for the Gay Men's Chorus, and also Anthony Cabrera, right there. Anthony is the assistant conductor for the Gay Men's Chorus, and we're going to talk to you, so you want to make sure, because we're at rehearsal, you have your mics close to you. Anthony, I haven't met you before. We're getting ready for this gigantic and historic concert. It hasn't happened since 2019, I believe.
Absolutely.
This is 2022, so we really do need a little Christmas. Tell us about what the Tropical Wave is all about. What are you doing here tonight?
Tropical Wave is the chamber ensemble of the Gay Men's Chorus of South Florida, and we are the outreach group. We are the small ensemble that goes out and represents the chorus on the regular, presenting really high quality music. These are select members, these are audition members of the group, and they commit to an additional rehearsal a week, some of them commuting from as far south as Miami-Dade County. To come and do this.
Yeah, and for viewers that might not know about the Gay Men's Chorus of South Florida, first off, what rock are you living under? And second, Tropical Wave is 18 voices as this ensemble group that represents really all of us in LGBT South Florida. The chorus itself, Gabe Salazar, as the conductor for the chorus, is one of the largest choruses in America. 170 voices. You're getting ready for chorus. Are you tired? You worn out?
Exhausted.
Are you exhausted?
It's a good exhausted. You know, it's the time of the year.
Don't you love Gabe go, oh yeah, I'm exhausted.
I am.
Yeah.
But it's good.
Yeah, and tell us from your seat a little bit about Tropical Wave. I think it's interesting. We've talked about the chorus and its mission. We do a lot of work in helping promote your mission as a nonprofit and how you represent for LGBT. But specifically, like what we're listening to in this rehearsal for the Chrstmas concert, tell us a little bit from your seat what Tropical Wave is all about.
Yeah, I mean, we get so many inquiries and requests to perform in the community, so it's great that we have this group of high-quality singers that we can send out to the community. We don't always have the time and the ability to send 150 singers out, and sometimes, you know, the venue doesn't allow that, so it's great that we have this, and we have Anthony leading them to new levels, and this group this year is really amazing, and they've done great work representing us, and they're going to continue.
And Anthony, I understand you were the former artistic director of the Miami Gay Men's Chorus. Is that correct?
I was the director of the Miami Chorus for 14 years.
14 years.
Before I came here last year.
Yeah, and we have talked about how lucky South Florida is to have 3 LGBT choruses, Miami's Chorus, the Fort Lauderdale Gay Men's Chorus, and Gay Men's Chorus South Florida, of which you just recently merged together with. Fort Lauderdale merged into the Gay Men's Chorus. What's your experience of your chorus experience in Dade County versus now this even larger opportunity?
Well, ultimately, the mission is the same. It's to bring community together and offer space, safe space for people who enjoy singing and want a place to come and do it that is quality. I had a really good 14-year run with Miami, and this has just been a whole lot of musical growth personally for me.
Yeah, you know, it's very funny. I want to remind everybody, December 16th at Sunshine Cathedral, where we're rehearsing right now, Tropical Wave, and then Sunday, December 18th at Hard Rock Live. The venue is absolutely magical, and for a Gay Men's Chorus, an LGBT music ensemble group, to be able to perform at Hard Rock Live is amazing. How do we get tickets for this?
You can go on our website, GMCSF.org, or visit Ticketmaster and buy your tickets that way.
And I know your marketing people would ask you to repeat that just a little slower.
www.gmcsf.org, or you can also visit Ticketmaster.
Yes, or Ticketmaster, and you want to make sure. Honestly, you don't want to wait long, because I happen to know where the ticket numbers are, and there's not much time left for either one of the concerts. One last thing that I want to ask you about. I'm listening to this music. What is it about gay men and the LGBT experience, and why we embrace the holidays and Christmas so much?
I think one of the reasons that we embrace it as a community is because so many people have historically not been able to embrace it with their own families. And we've always sought to have that same warm and fuzzy, crackling fire, love kind of thing going for the holidays. And when we can't find it at home with our families, we've found it with our friends and our chosen families singing. So I think that's one of the reasons we tend to really latch on to this music and to this time of year because we get to make a choice about who we get to spend it with.
I love the phrase chosen family. That's a representation of the music we're listening to. I also think it's interesting to me. I do Queer News Tonight every night, and most of the news we report on is pretty tough about what's going on in our world, in our politics, and in every possible way. The Gay Men's Chorus is just like Queer News Tonight or Inequality Florida, but it's bringing representation in a completely different way, and a very positive way, not only outside our community, but inside our community. Tell us a little bit about what you think Gay Men's Chorus of South Florida's mission is in terms of how they represent in community.
I think it's just our message with music. I mean, music is such a powerful tool to spread the message of hope and love and unity, and we get to do that every week. And I think it's very important that we use our tools and our talents to spread the level of awareness to our community.
I love that message. Well, we thank you very much. You're getting a behind-the-scenes glimpse of Rehearsal of Tropical Wave. We've also been to the full chorus implementation of Rehearsal, so you're getting to see behind the scenes. I can't let you two guys get away without going, wait, former Miami, now assistant conductor and the artistic director. Which one is better, Broward County or Dade County? Quick.
Oh, Broward. It's a wonderful place. And don't forget Palm Beach.
And Palm Beach.
Right. Forget Monroe and Collier at some point.
Politics. Here we go. All right. Well, you do not want to miss this. If you want a great Christmas experience and the LGBTQ community, it's right here practicing and rehearsing behind me. You want to see it December 16th here at Sunshine and December 18th at Hard Rock Live. Anthony Cabrera and Gabe Salazar with the Gay Men's Chorus of South Florida. Thank you very much for being with Queer News tonight.
Thank you.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out television network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support.